My name is Megan Mitchell. I'm 34, and I've been paying my parents $700 a week since their business collapsed. So when they didn't show up to my daughter Lily's 8th birthday party, I was confused and hurt. After the last guest left, I called them wondering if something had happened. We had more important things to do, my father said dismissively. I heard my mother's cold laugh in the background. I stood frozen phone in hand, stunned by their callousness. I had no idea that missed birthday was just the beginning of their plan. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our community of storytellers. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this twisted family drama. I've always been the responsible one in my family. After graduating with honors, I worked my way up to become a marketing executive at a respected firm in Chicago. I married James right after college, and for a while things were perfect. We had our beautiful daughter Lily, bought our dream house in the suburbs, and I thought we had it all figured out. Then 3 years ago, James blindsided me with divorce papers. He'd met someone else, younger of course, and wanted out. The divorce was messy and expensive, leaving me a single mom trying to maintain some stability for Lily while adjusting to my new reality. Lily took it hard. She was just 5 when we split, old enough to understand something was wrong, but too young to fully process why Daddy didn't live with us anymore. She became quieter, more sensitive. Her therapist said she was showing signs of abandonment anxiety, which broke my heart. I worked hard to create routines and consistency for her to show her that even though our family had changed, she was still loved and secure. Around the same time, my parents, Richard and Diane Mitchell, hit their own crisis. Dad's construction business failed after nearly 30 years. They'd been comfortable, not wealthy, but stable, until a major client defaulted on payments, sending the company into a tailspin of debt. At 62 and 60 respectively, they weren't prepared to start over. "We don't know what we're going to do, Megan," my mother sobbed over the phone. "The bank is threatening foreclosure and your father's blood pressure is through the roof from the stress." Despite my own financial strain from the divorce, I couldn't turn my back on them. They were my parents, after all. They had helped me through college and babysat Lily when she was younger. I offered to help, $700 a week, until they got back on their feet. It wasn't easy for me, but family helps. Family, right? "You're a lifesaver, honey," Dad said, his voice cracking with emotion when I made the offer. "We won't forget this." They sold their house in Wisconsin and moved to an apartment just 20 minutes from me in Illinois. "We want to be closer to family during this difficult time," Mom explained. "And we can help with Lily, too." At first, it seemed like the perfect solution. They got to see their granddaughter more often, and I had nearby family support while navigating single parenthood. But small things started nagging at me. When my brother Scott and his wife Jessica visited from Michigan with their twins, my parents seemed to transform. They'd cancel plans with Lily and me to accommodate Scott's family. They'd buy expensive gifts for the twins while giving Lily dollar store coloring books. When I mentioned it, Mom would say Scott's children need more attention since they live farther away. The financial demands increased, too. The $700 weekly payment, which was already stretching my budget, wasn't enough anymore. The prescription co-pays went up, Dad would say. Or the car needed unexpected repairs. Yet somehow, Mom had a new designer purse. Dad was sporting an expensive watch. When I asked about these purchases, they'd change the subject or claim they were gifts from Scott. Meanwhile, I was cutting back on my own expenses to maintain the payments. I canceled my gym membership, stopped getting my hair highlighted, and started buying generic everything. Lily and I were living comfortably but carefully while my parents seemed to be enjoying small luxuries despite their supposed financial crisis. Still, I ignored the warning signs. They were my parents. I trusted them. As Lily's 8th birthday approached, she became increasingly excited. She'd been planning her unicorn-themed party for months, carefully selecting decorations and activities. "Grandma and Grandpa will be there, right, Mommy?" she asked repeatedly. "Of course, sweetie." They wouldn't miss it for anything, I assured her, having confirmed with my parents multiple times. The day before the party, I called to confirm one last time. "We'll be there with bells on," Mom promised. "I've got a special gift for my special girl." The party Saturday afternoon was a success by all measures, except one. My parents never showed. Each time the doorbell rang, Lily ran to answer it, her face falling slightly when it wasn't her grandparents. As the hours passed, she stopped running to the door. "Where are Grandma and Grandpa?" she finally asked, as her friends were playing a game. "I'm sure they're just running late, honey," I said, stepping away to call them again. Straight to voicemail for both. By the time the last guest left, Lily was trying to be brave, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. She sat on the couch, still wearing her birthday crown, looking at the door. "Did Grandma and Grandpa forget my birthday?" she asked, in a small voice that made my heart crack. "No, sweetie. I'm sure something came up. Let's call them." That's when I got the dismissive. We had more important things to do for my father, followed by my mother's cold laugh in the background. As I hung up the phone, I looked at Lily's tear-streaked face and something hardened inside me. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about my daughter, and no one hurt my daughter without consequences. Monday morning after Lily's birthday, I was scrolling through Facebook while waiting for my coffee to brew when my stomach dropped. There, posted 12 hours ago, was a photo of my parents at my brother Scott's lake house. They were lounging on his boat, drinks in hand, huge smiles on their faces. The caption read, "Perfect weekend with the grandparents. The kids loved having them here." I stared at the timestamp. Posted Sunday afternoon. They had been at Scott's lake house during Lily's party. The party they'd promised multiple times to attend. The party that had left my daughter in tears, wondering why her grandparents didn't love her enough to come. My hands shaking with rage, I called my father. "Hello," he answered casually, as if nothing was wrong. "I saw the Facebook photos," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "You were at Scott's lake house during Lily's birthday party." There was a pause then. "Yes, we were." "So what?" "So what," I repeated, incredulous. "You promised Lily you'd be at her party." She was heartbroken. "Scott invited us for the weekend. The twins wanted to go fishing with their grandfather. We couldn't disappoint them." But disappointing my daughter was fine. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I heard rustling, then my mother came on the line. "Megan, you need to understand that Scott's family needs more attention than yours. You and Lily see us all the time. The twins only get to see us a few times a year. That's because Scott moved away by choice, and you live 20 minutes from us specifically to be closer to family," I pointed out. "Don't take that tone with me," she snapped. "Scott says you've always been selfish. We're starting to see what he means." The comment hit me like a slap. "What are you talking about? What has Scott been saying about me?" "Just that you've always thought you're better than everyone else with your fancy job and your big house. He said you probably only help us financially so you can lord it over us." I was speechless. My brother and I had always been competitive, but I never thought he'd poison my parents against me. "That's not true," I finally managed. "I help because you're my parents, and you said you needed it." "Well, Scott helps too," my mother said defensively. "He may not give us money every week like you do, but he gives us experiences, quality time." After hanging up, I sat at my kitchen table trying to process what had happened. Not only had my parents deliberately skipped Lily's birthday from my brother's family, but apparently Scott had been bad-mouthing me behind my back, and they believed him. Later that day, I received a text from my coworker, Amanda. "Just ran into your parents at Starbucks. They were talking to someone about your finances. Thought you should know." My blood ran cold. I called Amanda immediately for details. "I wasn't trying to eavesdrop," she explained, "but they were being pretty loud. They were telling someone, a man, about how much you make your mortgage payment, even that you're considering refinancing. It seemed really weird." That evening, Scott's wife Jessica called. Unlike her usual friendly tone, she sounded smug. "We had such a wonderful weekend with your parents," she gushed. "They're so much fun. The twins just adore having them all to themselves." "All to themselves because they skipped Lily's birthday party," I said flatly. "Oh, was that this weekend?" Jessica feigned innocence poorly. "Well, you know how it is. They have to prioritize. It's not like Lily won't have other birthdays. After that call, I made a decision. I would reduce my financial support. I wasn't cutting them off entirely, they were still my parents, but $700 a week was clearly more than they needed if they could afford weekend getaways. I'd drop it to $400. When I called to inform them of my decision, the reaction was immediate and hostile. "You can't do that," my father shouted. "We rely on that money. We've made commitments based on it." "I'm sorry, but I need to think about Lily's needs, too," I explained calmly. "And after what happened with her birthday, is that what this is about?" My mother interrupted. "You're punishing us financially because we chose to see our other grandchildren. That's emotional blackmail, Megan. This isn't punishment, it's reality. I've been stretching myself thin to help you." "You'll regret this," my father said coldly. "Don't think you can manipulate us with money and get away with it." The threat hung in the air after I hung up. Get away with what? Helping them financially while they disrespected my child. The next day, Amanda caught me in the break room at work. "There's something else you should know," she said hesitantly. "The man your parents were talking to at Starbucks, I'm pretty sure it was your ex-husband, James." My heart sank. "Are you certain?" "Not 100%, but from your photos it looked like him. And they seemed familiar with each other." That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, my phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was James's new girlfriend, Christina. "I think you should know that your parents have been meeting with James regularly for the past month," she said, without preamble. "He's been acting strange, making notes about your parenting, asking me weird questions about what's considered neglect. I don't like it." As I hung up, a chill ran down my spine. Something bigger was happening, something that went beyond a missed birthday party. My parents weren't just choosing my brother's family over mine. They were actively working against me. The question was why. 3 days after reducing financial support to my parents, I was preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find James standing there, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he said, brushing past me into the house without waiting for an invitation. "Hello to you too," I muttered, closing the door. "Lily's upstairs doing homework." "Good. This isn't a conversation for her to hear." He settled onto my couch like he still lived there. "I've been thinking about our custody arrangement. It's not working for me anymore." My stomach dropped. Our arrangement, me with primary physical custody, him with every other weekend and Wednesday dinners, had been stable for 3 years. "What's not working about it?" I kept my voice level, conscious of Lily upstairs. "I'm concerned about Lily's well-being. I've heard some troubling things about your home environment." From whom I asked, though I already suspected the answer. He ignored the question. "For instance, I understand you've been bringing different men around Lily." I stared at him, dumbfounded. "That's absolutely false. I haven't dated anyone seriously since we divorced." "That's not what I heard. I also understand you've been working such long hours that Lily is often left alone." Another lie. I'd specifically negotiated flexible hours to be home when Lily finished school. "James, whatever you've heard is fiction. Where is this coming from?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "My attorney will be filing for a modification of custody. I'm seeking full physical custody, with you having visitation rights." The room seemed to tilt. "On what grounds?" "Unstable home environment, parental neglect, financial instability." He recited these falsehoods as if reading a grocery list. "Financial instability, I make 6 figures, James. I've never missed a mortgage payment or been late on Lily's tuition. I understand you've been giving substantial amounts to your parents, putting Lily's financial security at risk. And that you're emotionally unstable since our divorce, having frequent breakdowns in front of our daughter." Each accusation felt like a physical blow, not just because they were lies, but because they contained twisted kernels of private information. Information only my parents would know. "Your parents are worried about Lily," James continued, confirming my suspicions. "They've been very helpful in documenting their concerns." After James left, I sat in my kitchen, the custody modification papers mocking me from the counter. I called Rachel my closest friend since college and a paralegal. "This is insane," she said after I explained. "These accusations are paper thin. But family court can be unpredictable, Megan. You need to take this seriously. How would James even know about the money I give my parents? Or my work schedule, I asked, though I knew. Document everything, Rachel advised. Every interaction with your parents with James. Start gathering evidence of your parenting. Lily's school records, medical visits, activities. Show the stability you provide. The next morning, I received a text from James. "I was in your bedroom yesterday while you were at work. Found some interesting things." My blood ran cold. I hadn't given James access to my house since the divorce. I immediately checked my spare key hidden in the garage. Still there. Then I remembered my parents had a key for emergencies. I drove straight to their apartment rage building with each mile. My mother answered the door, her surprise at seeing me quickly masked with a tight smile. "Megan, what a nice—" "Did you give James a key to my house?" I interrupted, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. My father emerged from the kitchen. "Keep your voice down. The neighbors will hear. Answer the question. Did you give James access to my home?" They exchanged glances before my mother sighed. "We did what was necessary. James needed to see how you're living." "You had no right?" My voice shook. "That's breaking and entering." "Don't be dramatic," my father scoffed. "We're doing what's best for Lily." "How is invading my privacy and helping my ex-husband build a fraudulent custody case what's best for Lily?" "You're not stable, Megan," my mother said, her voice taking on a rehearsed quality. "You work too much. You're bitter about the divorce. You take out your frustrations on Lily." I stared at them, these strangers wearing my parents' faces. "None of that is true, and you know it." "We've seen how you are," my father insisted. "James can provide a more stable home for Lily." James, who cheated on me, who missed half his visitations last year, that James. "He's changed," my mother said firmly. "He has Christina now. They can give Lily a proper family." I fought to keep my composure. "I want my house key back. Now." After retrieving my key, I drove home in a daze. My own parents were actively trying to take my daughter away from me. The betrayal was almost too enormous to comprehend. That afternoon, Rachel helped me find a family law attorney, Catherine Wong, who specialized in high-conflict custody cases. "Based on what you've told me, your ex doesn't have a strong case," Catherine assured me after reviewing the documents. "But we need to be aggressive in countering these allegations. Your parents' involvement complicates things." "How so?" I asked. "Grandparents usually support their own children in custody disputes. The court might give their testimony extra weight since they're going against you. We need to establish their bias and credibility issues." As we developed a strategy, I received a call from Lily's school. My stomach dropped when I saw the number. "Miss Mitchell, this is Principal Sanders. Could you come in tomorrow morning? There's a situation we need to discuss regarding Lily." "What kind of situation?" I asked, my throat tight. "Your mother came by today to speak with Lily's teacher. She shared some concerning information. I'd rather not discuss it over the phone." That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she seemed withdrawn. "Sweetheart, is everything okay? Did something happen at school today?" She fidgeted with her blanket, avoiding my eyes. "Grandma came to see me. She said, I might go live with Daddy soon. Is that true, Mommy?" I struggled to maintain my composure as rage and heartbreak battled within me. "No, honey. You're staying right here with me. Grandma said you're too sad to take care of me properly." Her little voice trembled. "She said Daddy and Christina would be better parents." I gathered my daughter in my arms, feeling her tears soak through my shirt. "That's not true, Lily. Not one bit. I love you more than anything in this world, and you're staying right here with me." Grandma is confused right now. After Lily fell asleep, I broke down in my bathroom, muffling my sobs with a towel. For the first time since my divorce, I felt truly alone. My parents, the people I thought would always have my back, had not only abandoned me, but were actively working to destroy my life. A week after discovering my parents' involvement in James's custody ploy, I was reviewing my credit card statement when I noticed several unfamiliar charges. A $500 purchase at an electronics store in Milwaukee, a $700 charge at a furniture outlet, 3 restaurant charges totaling over $400. None of these were mine. I called the credit card company immediately. After verifying the fraudulent charges, the representative asked Miss Mitchell, "Do you recognize the name Diane Mitchell?" "My mother." "That's my mother's name," I confirmed, a sick feeling growing in my stomach. "She's listed as an authorized user on this account. She was added 3 months ago." I never added my mother to my credit card. After freezing the account and filing a fraud report, I dove deeper into my finances. What I discovered left me breathless. 2 new credit cards had been opened in my name, both maxed out at their $5,000 limits. A personal loan for $15,000 had been taken out using my Social Security number. In total, over $25,000 of fraudulent debt in my name. I pulled my credit report watching with growing horror as my once excellent score had plummeted nearly 150 points due to high utilization and missed payments on accounts I never knew existed. With shaking hands, I called Benjamin Harris, my financial advisor. "This is identity theft, Megan," he said gravely after I explained the situation. "You need to file a police report immediately." Against my own parents, the thought made me physically ill. If they're responsible, yes. This isn't a misunderstanding or a simple boundary violation. This is a felony. I spent the next day gathering documentation, credit reports, account statements, proof of the weekly payments I'd been making to my parents. Everything pointed to a systematic financial exploitation that had begun months ago, right after they moved closer to help with Lily. Before I could decide on my next step, my brother Scott showed up at my door unannounced. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he demanded, barging into my house, much like James had days before. "Hello to you too, Scott," I said, closing the door. "Care to be more specific? You're threatening to press charges against Mom and Dad for identity theft. Are you insane?" So they had called him. "How did you know about that?" They called me in tears. "After everything they've done for you, this is how you repay them, by threatening legal action over a simple misunderstanding." "A simple misunderstanding," I laughed bitterly. "They stole my identity and racked up $25 0 inches fraudulent debt. They're trying to help my ex-husband take my daughter away. What part of that is a misunderstanding?" Scott's face flushed. "They were just trying to get what they deserved. You've always been Dad's favorite. The golden child with the fancy degree and the big house. Some of us had to work for everything we got." The pieces suddenly clicked into place. "Is that what this is about? You're jealous because you think I had it easier than you." "You did have it easier. Dad paid for your college. You got the good jobs because of his connections. I had to drop out and work construction with him because there wasn't enough money for both of us to go to school." I stared at my brother, this stranger filled with decades of resentment. "Scott, I worked 3 jobs during college. Dad didn't pay my tuition. I'm still paying off student loans. And I got my jobs through internships and networking, not connections." "Liar," he spat. "They told me everything. How you manipulate everyone around you. How you forced them to move close to you so you could control them. How you're an unstable mother who takes her divorce bitterness out on Lily." I felt a chill. These weren't just casual lies. This was a carefully constructed narrative. "They've been telling you these things for a while, haven't they?" I asked quietly. "They finally opened up about what you're really like," he confirmed. "They were afraid to tell me before afraid I'd confront you and make things worse for them. But now that James is fighting for custody, they felt I should know the truth." After Scott left, still convinced of my villainy, I called my parents. My father answered on the first ring. "I know about the identity theft," I said without preamble. "The credit cards, the loan adding Mom as an authorized user." There was a pause, then a sigh. "It's not theft when we're entitled to it." The baldness of the statement took my breath away. "Entitled to commit fraud in my name." Entitled to compensation for everything we've done for you, he clarified, as if explaining something obvious to a child. The weekly payments weren't enough. Do you know how much we sacrificed for you over the years? So this is what retroactive payment for raising me? Don't be dramatic, Megan. You're successful because of us. Your fancy education, your big house. You owe all of that to our parenting. My mother came on the line. We raised you. We made you who you are. Everything you have belongs to us, too. The conversation continued in this vein, my parents gaslighting me with increasing intensity. According to them, using my identity wasn't fraud, but their right as parents. The custody interference wasn't betrayal, but necessary intervention for Lily's well-being. When I finally announced I was cutting off all financial support, their response was immediate. Do that, my father said coldly, and we'll tell Lily exactly what kind of mother you really are. After hanging up, I made 2 calls. The first to Catherine, my attorney, updating her on the financial fraud. The second to Benjamin, my financial advisor, asking him to help me document everything for both the police and the credit bureaus. That night, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by paperwork. Credit reports, bank statements, documentation of the weekly payments to my parents. The betrayal was so complete, so all-encompassing, that it felt almost surreal. The people who raised me, who I trusted implicitly, had been systematically working to destroy me financially, emotionally, and as a mother. As I organized the evidence, I found myself wondering how long had they been planning this? Was their business failure even real, or just a pretext to access my finances? Had they moved closer to me not to help with Lily, but to better position themselves to exploit me? Most painfully, had they ever really loved me, or had I always just been a resource to them? I thought of Lily sleeping upstairs, innocent and unaware of the war being waged around her. My parents were willing to traumatize an 8-year-old child to get what they wanted. That knowledge, more than anything else, hardened my resolve. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting my daughter from people who would use her as a pawn in their twisted game. And I would do whatever it took to keep her safe. The morning after confronting my parents about the identity theft, I dropped Lily at school and headed to my meeting with Principal Sanders. The knot in my stomach tightened as I walked into her office. Thank you for coming in, Miss Mitchell, she said, her expression carefully neutral. I wanted to discuss some concerns that have been brought to our attention. By my mother, I stated flatly. She nodded. Yes. Mrs. Mitchell spoke with Miss Peterson yesterday, making some serious allegations about your home environment. What exactly did she say? Principal Sanders consulted her notes. She suggested that you've been emotionally unstable since your divorce, that you frequently break down in front of Lily, that you speak negatively about her father, and that you sometimes forget to feed her breakfast or pack her lunch. The allegations were so absurd, they would have been laughable if they weren't so damaging. None of that is true, I said firmly. My mother is retaliating because I recently discovered she and my father committed identity theft using my personal information. I've reduced financial support to them, and they're now working with my ex-husband to try to gain custody of Lily. I showed her the documentation I'd brought. Lily's regular attendance record her consistent homework completion, the notes from her therapist confirming she was well adjusted despite the divorce. Principal Sanders seemed relieved. This aligns much more with what we observe of Lily and your parenting. She's a happy, well-cared-for child who speaks very highly of you. As I left the school, my phone buzzed with a text from a neighbor. Just saw this. Thought you should know. It was a screenshot of a vague Facebook post from my brother Scott. Disturbing. To discover someone you thought was a good parent is actually neglectful and unstable. Sometimes the people who present the perfect image are hiding the darkest secrets, praying for my niece's safety. The comments were filled with sympathetic responses, several asking for details which Scott provided in deliberately vague but damning terms. Can't say much because of potential legal issues, but let's just say appearances are deceiving. My parents are devastated by what they've witnessed. By the time I arrived at work, 3 colleagues had seen the post through mutual connections. The whispers followed me down the hallway to my office. My boss, Daniel, called me in around noon. "Megan, I've received a concerning phone call this morning," he began cautiously. "A woman identifying herself as your mother called to express worries about your mental state. She suggested you might be experiencing a breakdown that could affect your work performance." I closed my eyes briefly. "Daniel, I'm currently dealing with a family situation. My parents have committed identity theft using my information, and they're retaliating because I've discovered it. They're also trying to help my ex-husband gain custody of my daughter." Daniel looked relieved. "That aligns much more with the Megan I know. I've never had concerns about your mental stability or work performance. Thank you for telling me about the call." "Of course. And Megan, take whatever time you need to handle this. We've got your back here." That support meant more than he could know, especially as the smear campaign intensified throughout the day. 3 friends texted to say my parents had contacted them, sharing concerns about my parenting and mental health. 2 canceled our upcoming lunch plans with vague excuses. By evening, I'd received a call from Child Protective Services. "We've received a report expressing concern about your daughter's welfare," the worker explained. "We're required to investigate all such reports. May I ask who made the report?" I already knew the answer. "I'm not at liberty to say, but it was a family member concerned about emotional abuse and neglect. The CPS visit was scheduled for the following day." I spent the night cleaning my already tidy house and gathering documentation. Lily's medical records showing regular checkups, school reports, activity schedules, fully stocked refrigerator and pantry. The investigator, Miss Reynolds, was professional but thorough. She inspected our home, spoke with me, and then gently interviewed Lily. "Based on what I've seen, there's no evidence supporting the allegations," she concluded. "This case will likely be closed after my supervisor reviews my report." After she left, I called my cellular provider and requested the call logs for the anonymous CPS report. As I suspected, it had come from my mother's phone number. That evening, Sarah, my loyal co-worker, came over after Lily went to bed. "Your mom called me today," she revealed, handing me a glass of wine. "Tried to convince me you were having some kind of breakdown. Said you were paranoid and making up lies about them." "What did you say?" I asked, bracing myself. "I told her I've known you for 6 years, and you're the most level-headed person I know." Then I asked why she was calling your colleagues to undermine you professionally. Sarah smiled grimly. She hung up. Sarah helped me document each instance of the smear campaign, screenshots of Scott's social media posts, lists of friends and colleagues who'd been contacted, the CPS report, the school meeting. We created a timeline showing the escalation following my discovery of the identity theft and my decision to cut financial support. "This is coordinated and deliberate," Sarah observed. "They're trying to isolate you and make you look unstable so their accusations seem more credible. And it's working with some people," I noted, thinking of the friends who had distanced themselves. "The allegations are so outrageous that they assume there must be some truth to them. Why would parents lie so completely about their own daughter?" "Because they're counting on that exact reaction," Sarah pointed out. "Who would believe parents would go to these lengths unless they were genuinely concerned? It's diabolical." The next morning, my boss called me into his office again, his expression grave. "Megan, I've received multiple calls about you, from your parents, your brother, and now someone claiming to be a concerned family friend. I want to be clear, this is bordering on harassment of an employee. I've instructed our receptionist to block their numbers." "I'm so sorry about this," I began, but he waved me off. "This isn't your fault, but I need to warn you." They mentioned reaching out to clients. My blood ran cold. My professional reputation was now at stake. "I've contacted our legal department," Daniel continued. "We're documenting everything in case we need to issue cease and desist letters." The support from Daniel and Sarah strengthened my resolve. That night, after tucking Lily in, I sat down at my computer and began to fight back. I wrote detailed accounts of every interaction, every lie, every manipulation. I gathered financial records, phone logs, text messages. I reached out to my most trusted friends, explaining the situation clearly and with evidence. As I worked, I realized something important. I had spent my life trying to please my parents, believing their approval validated my worth. That deep-seated need for their acceptance had blinded me to their true nature for years. Now, with their mask finally removed, I could see them clearly, and I was done seeking approval from people capable of such calculated cruelty. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a shift inside me. The hurt and confusion were still there, but something else was emerging, a steely determination. My parents had declared war not just on me, but on my daughter's stability and happiness. They had underestimated how fiercely I would fight for her. As I closed my laptop in the early hours of the morning, I made a decision. No more reactive defense. It was time to take control of this situation and protect what mattered most. The law office of Catherine Wong was housed in a converted Victorian in downtown Chicago, the elegant exterior belying the fierce advocacy that occurred inside. Catherine herself reflected this contrast. A petite woman with a soft-spoken manner and razor-sharp legal mind. "We're dealing with multiple legal issues," she explained as we sat in her office, surrounded by the documentation I'd gathered. The custody challenge, the identity theft, the defamation campaign. Each requires different strategies, but they're all connected. "What's our first move?" I asked, feeling both exhausted and determined. On the custody front, we respond formally to James's petition with our own evidence. Your parenting is exemplary, and we have plenty of documentation to prove it. On the financial fraud, we proceed with both criminal charges and credit bureau disputes. For the defamation, we issue cease and desist letters immediately. Catherine drafted the letters that day. Formal legal notices to my parents and Scott demanding they stop making false statements about me to my employer friends, colleagues, and Lily's school. The letters detailed the specific false claims and warned of legal consequences if the behavior continued. "Will these actually work?" I asked skeptically. "Often, yes. Many people back down when faced with the reality of legal action. If not, we proceed to restraining orders and formal defamation suits." Within days, we filed our response to James's custody modification request, including affidavits from Lily's teacher, her therapist, and several parents of her friends, attesting to my consistent, loving parenting. We also filed formal identity theft reports with the police, the FTC, and the 3 major credit bureaus. My parents' reaction was swift. 2 days after receiving the cease and desist letter, they showed up at my office, creating a scene in the lobby. "We just want to talk to our daughter," my mother wailed dramatically as security escorted them out. "She's not well. She needs help." That evening, they appeared at Lily's school during her dance class. The instructor, forewarned by me about the situation, refused to let them near her and called me immediately. When I arrived, my father was arguing with the school's security guard. "We're her grandparents. We have every right to see her." "You have no rights here," I said calmly, stepping between them and the building entrance. "Leave now or I'll call the police." "You can't keep us from our granddaughter," my mother hissed. "We raised you. We made you. We can unmake you just as easily." The naked threat spoken in public with witnesses became part of our documentation for the restraining order we filed the next day. The legal battle intensified when my parents hired their own attorney, an aggressive family law specialist named Victor Reynolds, known for his scorched earth approach to litigation. "They're claiming grandparents' rights now," Catherine informed me after receiving their counterfiling. "They're seeking court-ordered visitation with Lily separate from James's custody petition. Can they do that?" Illinois recognizes grandparent visitation rights in certain circumstances, but their case is weak. They need to prove that denying visitation would harm Lily's mental, physical, or emotional health. Meanwhile, the police investigation into the identity theft progressed. Detective Miller, assigned to the case, called me after interviewing my parents. "They're not denying using your information," he said, sounding bewildered. "They're claiming they had your permission because, and I quote, 'parents are entitled to their children's resources.'" "That's absolutely false," I assured him. "I never authorized any of these accounts." "I believe you, Miss Mitchell. We found evidence they've done this before. With your brother Scott about 5 years ago. He never pressed charges, but there was a police report filed that was later withdrawn. This revelation stunned me. Scott, who was now helping them smear me, had once been their victim too. I wondered if his current loyalty was born of fear rather than genuine alliance. 2 weeks later, we were in family court for a preliminary hearing on both James's custody modification and my parents' grandparent visitation petition. Catherine had subpoenaed them to testify about their involvement in James's custody case. Under oath, my father admitted to meeting with James multiple times before the custody filing. "And what did you discuss during these meetings?" Catherine asked. "Our concerns about Megan's parenting," he responded stiffly. "Did you provide James with information about Miss Mitchell's finances?" "Some information, yes. He's Lily's father. He has a right to know if her mother is financially unstable." "And did you enter Miss Mitchell's home without her knowledge or permission to gather evidence for Mr. Mitchell?" He hesitated, aware of the legal implications of admitting to breaking and entering. "We have a key. We didn't think we needed special permission." "So you admit to entering her home when she wasn't present, and without her knowledge." "We were concerned about our granddaughter," my mother interjected from the gallery. "Please refrain from speaking, unless you're on the stand, Mrs. Mitchell," the judge admonished. My mother's turn under oath revealed even more damaging admissions. She acknowledged telling Lily that she might soon live with her father, confirming inappropriate discussions of the custody case with an 8-year-old. She admitted to calling my employer and Lily's school with concerns about my mental health. Most damagingly, she couldn't provide any specific incidents of poor parenting when pressed, instead offering vague allegations about my general instability and bitterness. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, saw through the manipulation. "Mrs. Mitchell, this court takes allegations of parental unfitness very seriously. Equally seriously, we take false allegations designed to interfere with a parent-child relationship. Do you have any concrete evidence of neglect or abuse by your daughter?" My mother faltered. "Not specific incidents, Your Honor. It's more of a pattern." "A pattern you can't provide any examples of," the judge noted dryly. The hearing concluded with a temporary order maintaining the existing custody arrangement and specifically prohibiting my parents from contacting Lily's school or participating in school events pending the final hearing. Their grandparent visitation petition was taken under advisement, with the judge expressing serious concerns about the motivations behind this filing. Outside the courtroom, James approached me, looking uncomfortable. "I need to talk to you," he said quietly. "Privately." We stepped into an empty conference room. "I'm starting to think your parents haven't been entirely truthful with me," he admitted. "Christina has been saying this all along, but I didn't listen." "What changed your mind?" "Hearing them testify. The things they said didn't match what they told me privately. And when the judge asked for specific examples of your bad parenting, they had nothing." He ran a hand through his hair. "I never wanted to put Lily through a custody battle. They were so convincing about how worried they were for her." "They manipulated you just like they've been manipulating me for months," I said quietly. "I need time to think about all this, but I've instructed my attorney to pause the custody proceedings for now." It was a small victory, but a significant one. James's retreat created the first crack in my parents' campaign against me. Without his custody petition, their grandparent visitation case weakened substantially. The identity theft investigation brought further progress. My credit had been restored, the fraudulent accounts closed, and the police had forwarded their findings to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges. But my parents weren't backing down easily. Victor Reynolds filed motion after motion, dragging out the legal proceedings and increasing my already substantial legal costs. They continued their defamation campaign, though more carefully now, using innuendo rather than direct accusations. And then came their most brazen move yet. I knew something was wrong the moment I pulled into my driveway. The front door was slightly ajar, though I distinctly remembered locking it when Lily and I left that morning. With my heart pounding, I called the police before cautiously entering my own home. The interior looked normal at first glance, no obvious signs of forced entry or theft. But as I moved through the house, I noticed subtle differences. Drawers left slightly open papers rearranged on my desk. In my home office, the filing cabinet where I kept important documents was unlocked, several folders missing. My hands shook as I checked the hidden security camera I'd installed after learning my parents had entered my home previously. The footage showed my father using a key to enter around noon, methodically searching through my files before leaving with several folders tucked under his arm. The responding police officers took my statement and viewed the security footage. The missing folders contained financial documents, legal correspondence about the custody case, and personal journals I kept during therapy after my divorce, I explained. "Do you still have the key they used?" one officer asked. "No," I demanded it back. "Weeks ago I said a sick feeling growing in my stomach. They must have made a copy." The officers recommended changing all locks immediately and filing for an emergency restraining order based on the break-in. They also advised upgrading my security system to include motion sensors and cameras at all entry points. That evening, as a locksmith worked on my doors, I received a call from Lily's teacher, Miss Peterson. "Miss Mitchell, I wanted to let you know about something concerning that happened today. Lily seems quite upset." "What happened?" She came back from lunch in tears. "When I asked what was wrong, she said that other children were asking if it was true that you were crazy and a bad mom. Apparently, a classmate's mother had been told by your mother that you were having severe mental health issues that made you dangerous." I closed my eyes, trying to maintain composure. "How did Lily respond?" "She defended you fiercely, said it was all lies, but she was very shaken." Miss Peterson paused. "I've spoken to the principal about this. Given the court order prohibiting your parents from school contact, we're documenting this as a violation." After thanking her, I went to check on Lily, who was quietly doing homework in her room. When I asked about her day, her lower lip trembled. "Mommy, why is everyone saying bad things about you?" Emma said. "Her mom heard you're crazy, and that's why I might have to live with Dad." I sat beside her, choosing my words carefully. "Sometimes adults have disagreements, sweetheart. Right now, Grandma and Grandpa are upset with me and saying things that aren't true. But I promise you everything is going to be okay. You're staying right here with me." "I told Emma her mom was wrong," Lily said fiercely. "I told everyone you're the best mom ever." I hugged her tightly, fighting back tears. "Thank you, baby. That means everything to me." The next morning, I received a call from my boss, Daniel, his voice tight with concern. "Megan, I need you to come in immediately. There's a situation we need to address." At the office, I was ushered into a meeting with Daniel and Heather from HR. They slid a formal letter across the table, a complaint filed against me alleging professional misconduct. "Your parents contacted the board of directors directly," Daniel explained grimly. "They've made allegations about your mental health, claimed you've been using company resources for personal legal battles, and suggested you've been falsifying marketing reports." "None of that is true," I said, though the defense felt hollow after weeks of similar denials. "We know," Heather assured me, "but we have to follow protocol. You're being placed on administrative leave with pay while we investigate." "How long will that take?" 2 weeks at most. We've already scheduled interviews with your team members who I suspect will corroborate your professionalism." Daniel looked genuinely apologetic. "I'm sorry, Megan. We're trying to handle this as quickly and fairly as possible." I nodded, numbly gathering my personal items under the watchful eye of security. Standard procedure for administrative leave, but humiliating nonetheless. As I walked to my car, several colleagues watched from windows, no doubt, wondering what I'd done to warrant such treatment. The financial strain was becoming unbearable. Legal fees for both the custody defense and identity theft case had depleted my savings. Now, despite being on paid leave, the uncertainty of my professional future added another layer of anxiety. Catherine had warned me legal proceedings could stretch for months. That afternoon, I returned from grocery shopping to find my car vandalized in the store parking lot. Someone had keyed Bad Mom into the driver's side door and punctured 2 tires. A nearby security camera had captured a woman matching my mother's description near the car shortly before I discovered the damage. The police report felt like just another document in an ever-growing pile of evidence that was doing little to actually stop the harassment. The legal system moved slowly, while my parents' campaign against me accelerated with seemingly no consequences. Later that evening, after putting Lily to bed, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by bills, legal documents, and security system brochures. The weight of it all, the betrayal, the financial strain, the constant vigilance, the professional embarrassment, crashed over me. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wondered if the fight was worth it. Maybe James could provide a more stable home for Lily right now. Maybe I should take the job offer I'd received last month from a firm in Seattle, put thousands of miles between us and this toxic situation. Maybe running away wasn't cowardice, but self-preservation. As these thoughts swirled, my doorbell rang. Through the newly installed security camera, I saw Rachel standing on my porch with a bottle of wine and takeout bags. "I figured you might need dinner and a friendly face," she said when I opened the door. "Sarah called me about what happened at work." Over food and wine, I confessed my doubts. "I don't know if I can keep doing this, Rachel. They're relentless. Every time I think it can't get worse, it does. Maybe Lily would be better off if I just—" "Don't you dare finish that sentence," Rachel interrupted firmly. "That's exactly what they want, to break you down until you give up." She reached across the table, gripping my hand. "You're not alone in this fight, Megan. I know it feels that way, but you have people in your corner. But the financial cost alone—" "Let me help," she offered. "I've been saving for a kitchen remodel, but this is more important. Let me loan you what you need to keep fighting." "I can't ask you to do that." "You didn't ask. I'm offering." Her expression softened. "When Tom left me for his secretary, you were there every step of the way. You let me crash on your couch for a month. You watched my kids so I could go to therapy. Now it's my turn to have your back." That night after Rachel left, I stood in Lily's doorway watching her sleep, her face peaceful despite the turmoil surrounding her. I thought about what giving up would teach her. That bullies win, that justice is only for those with unlimited resources, that her mother would abandon the fight when it got too hard. I thought about what standing firm would show her. That truth matters, that we don't let people hurt us without consequence, that her mother would walk through fire to protect her. The choice, when framed that way, wasn't really a choice at all. I texted Catherine, "I'm not backing down. Whatever it takes." Her response came quickly, "Good. Because I think I've found something that will change everything." Catherine's discovery came from an unexpected source. James's girlfriend, Christina. She had reached out to Catherine, directly asking to meet privately. "I believe James has been manipulated by your client's parents," she told Catherine during their meeting. "I've been telling him this for weeks, but he didn't listen until the court hearing. Now he's starting to see it too." Christina had compiled a detailed account of Richard and Diane Mitchell's interactions with James over the previous months, including recordings of several phone calls where they coached him on what to say in court and suggested specific allegations to make against me. "I started recording because something felt off," Christina explained. "They were so insistent, always pushing James to take more aggressive action. It didn't align with what I knew about Megan from James's earlier descriptions of her as a good mother. The recordings revealed my parents explicitly strategizing to separate me from Lily, with my mother stating, 'Once we get custody transferred to James, we'll have much more access to Lily and to Megan's finances through child support.' This evidence of deliberate manipulation transformed the case. Catherine immediately filed an amended response to the custody petition, including Christina's affidavit and the recordings. The judge ordered an emergency hearing for the following week. 3 days before the hearing, I received an unexpected email from Jessica, my brother Scott's wife. "We need to talk," it read. "Not over the phone. Can we meet somewhere public?" We arranged to meet at a cafe halfway between our homes. Jessica arrived looking nervous, glancing frequently over her shoulder. "Scott doesn't know I'm here," she said immediately. "He'd be furious. But I can't keep quiet anymore." About what? Your parents tried the same thing with us a few years ago, she revealed, lowering her voice. When the twins were born, they started showing up unannounced, criticizing my parenting, telling Scott I was unstable. They tried to access our finances too, opened credit cards in Scott's name. I remembered Detective Miller mentioning a withdrawn police report. What happened? Scott confronted them. They turned it around completely, said he was ungrateful, threatened to tell everyone he was an unfit father. They had this power over him. He's always desperately wanted their approval. Jessica looked down. So he gave in. Let them have access to our accounts, regular time with the kids. It was easier than fighting. And now they're using him to help them do the same to me, I realized. Yes. I'm so sorry, Megan. I wanted to warn you, but Scott insisted you were the problem, not them. I think they've been playing us against each other for years. Jessica agreed to provide a written statement about my parents' pattern of behavior and their previous identity theft against Scott. Though she wasn't willing to testify in court for fear of damaging her marriage, her statement provided crucial context about their history of financial and emotional manipulation. The next day brought another breakthrough. While organizing documents for the hearing, I found an old journal of my mother's that she had left behind during a visit months earlier. I had set it aside, respecting her privacy, but now felt justified in examining it. The journal contained detailed entries spanning the past year, including explicit plans to move closer to me, to take control of Lily's upbringing and access Megan's resources. One entry, chillingly, stated, R thinks we can get guardianship of Lily if we can prove Megan unfit. Need to document every perceived mistake, exaggerate where necessary. Catherine added the journal to our evidence file, though she cautioned it might be challenged on privacy grounds. Still, it shows premeditation. Combined with Christina's recordings and Jessica's statement, we're building a compelling case of systematic manipulation and fraud. As we prepared for the emergency hearing, my team grew unexpectedly. Sarah organized several colleagues to provide statements about my professional conduct, directly contradicting my parents' allegations to my employer. My neighbor Roger, a retired security consultant, volunteered to testify about witnessing my mother vandalizing my car. Lily's therapist prepared a report documenting the emotional impact of my parents' interference. The morning of the hearing, James asked to speak with me privately. I'm withdrawing my custody petition, he said without preamble. After listening to Christina's recordings, I realize I was used as a weapon against you. I'm sorry, Megan. You weren't the only one they manipulated, I acknowledged. They're expert at finding insecurities and exploiting them. I've instructed my attorney to file the withdrawal immediately. I'll testify if needed about how they approached me and what they claimed. His testimony proved unnecessary. The emergency hearing proceeded with a focus on my parents' grandparent visitation petition and my request for a permanent restraining order. Judge Reynolds, who had presided over the preliminary hearing, listened intently as Catherine presented the new evidence. The recordings of my parents planning to manipulate the custody case visibly disturbed the judge. When my mother's journal was introduced, my father's face paled. Their attorney, Victor Reynolds, objected strenuously, but the judge overruled him, noting that the journal had been voluntarily left in my home. Most damaging was the financial fraud evidence. Detective Miller testified about the identity theft investigation, including bank records showing my parents had transferred funds from fraudulent accounts in my name to their personal accounts. When it was my parents' turn to present their case, their testimony quickly unraveled. Under Catherine's cross-examination, my father admitted they had made a copy of my house key against my wishes. My mother couldn't explain why she had contacted Lily's school after being explicitly prohibited by court order. When confronted with her journal entries, she claimed they were taken out of context but couldn't provide an innocent explanation for planning to document every perceived mistake, exaggerate where necessary. By the time Catherine rested our case, the atmosphere in the courtroom had shifted decisively. Judge Reynolds didn't even require deliberation. Based on the evidence presented, this court finds a clear and disturbing pattern of manipulation, defamation, and financial exploitation, she declared. The grandparent visitation petition is denied. The temporary restraining order is made permanent, prohibiting Richard and Diane Mitchell from contacting Megan Mitchell or Lily Mitchell or coming within 500 feet of their home school or workplaces. Furthermore, she referred the financial fraud evidence to the district attorney's office with a recommendation for criminal charges. She ordered my parents to pay my legal fees and damages for the defamation and harassment. This court takes a very dim view of using the legal system as a weapon to harass and control family members, Judge Reynolds concluded. The behavior exhibited by the petitioners represents a profound abuse of both familial relationships and the court's resources. As we left the courtroom, my parents wouldn't meet my eyes. Their attorney was already discussing appeal options, but their defeat was evident in their postures. For the first time in months, I felt the crushing weight begin to lift. Back at home, surrounded by my impromptu support team, Catherine, Rachel, Sarah, and now Christina and James, I allowed myself to feel the first tentative tendrils of hope. "It's really over?" I asked Catherine, still disbelieving. "The legal battle is largely over," she confirmed. "There may be some follow-up with the criminal charges, but the immediate threat to your custody and reputation has been neutralized. Your parents have been thoroughly discredited in the eyes of the court." That evening, I received a text from Scott, the first communication from my brother in weeks. "Can we talk alone?" We met the following day at a park-neutral territory for a conversation long overdue. Scott looked haggard, the confident facade gone. "Jessica told me she met with you," he began. "She showed me her statement about what they did to us a few years ago." I nodded, waiting. "I thought I was protecting my family by giving them what they wanted," he continued, voice hollow. "I was too proud to admit I was being manipulated, too afraid to stand up to them. It was easier to believe their lies about you than face what they really are. They pitted us against each other our whole lives," I observed. "Always comparing, always making sure we saw each other as competition rather than allies. I'm sorry, Megan. For everything. The Facebook posts, the lies, all of it. I was wrong." His apology couldn't immediately heal the damage done, but it was a start. We agreed to move forward cautiously with professional help to navigate the complex emotions and patterns established over decades. The following Monday, I returned to work, the investigation having cleared me of all allegations. My boss, Daniel, welcomed me back warmly, the entire marketing department applauding as I walked in. A weight I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying lifted from my shoulders. My professional reputation remained intact. That evening, James came over for dinner with Lily, the first peaceful co-parenting interaction we'd had in months. As Lily chatted excitedly about school, I caught James's eye across the table. He nodded slightly, a silent acknowledgement of our shared commitment to protect our daughter from further trauma. After he left, Lily and I sat on the couch together, looking through old photo albums. "Will Grandma and Grandpa ever come back?" she asked quietly, tracing a picture of herself as a toddler on my father's shoulders. "I don't know, sweetheart," I answered honestly. "They made some very bad choices that hurt us, and they need to take responsibility for those choices before they can be part of our lives again." "I miss them sometimes," she admitted. "But I was scared when they said those mean things about you." "It's okay to miss the good parts," I assured her. "We can remember those while still knowing that what they did wasn't okay." As Lily fell asleep that night, I reflected on the long road ahead. The legal victory marked the end of one chapter but the beginning of another. The healing process for both Lily and myself would take time and intention. Yet for the first time in months, I faced that future not with dread but with determination. We had weathered the storm. We had emerged stronger. And whatever came next, we would face it together, surrounded by the true family we had discovered along the way. Not those bound by blood obligation, but those connected by love, respect, and unwavering support. The legal victory marked a definitive end to my parents' campaign against me, but the emotional aftermath proved more complex. In the weeks following the court decision, I oscillated between relief, anger, grief, and a strange, hollow emptiness. Catherine had warned me about this. "Winning the case doesn't automatically heal the wounds," she'd said. "You've been betrayed by the people who should have protected you most. That trauma doesn't disappear with a favorable ruling." She was right. I found myself jumping at unexpected sounds, checking and rechecking door locks, scrutinizing strangers who resembled my parents. I'd wake from nightmares where I discovered them in my house, standing over Lily's bed. The hypervigilance was exhausting, but seemed impossible to shut off. Dr. Melanie Porter, the therapist I started seeing 2 weeks after the court hearing, helped me understand these reactions. "You're experiencing symptoms of post-traumatic stress," she explained during our third session. "Your sense of safety was profoundly violated, not by strangers, but by family, the very people who should represent safety. Your brain is working overtime to protect you from further harm." We developed strategies to manage the anxiety: grounding techniques, mindfulness practices, establishing new safety routines. Slowly, the hypervigilance began to ease. The nightmares became less frequent. I started sleeping through the night again. Lily was receiving her own specialized support. The child psychologist Dr. Westbrook used play therapy to help her process the confusing experience of having her grandparents suddenly disappear from her life after their disturbing behavior. "She's remarkably resilient," Dr. Westbrook assured me during our monthly parent consultation. "Children her age are still developing their understanding of family relationships. With consistent support and honest, age-appropriate explanations, she's adjusting well." Indeed, Lily's natural resilience continually amazed me. She asked straightforward questions about the situation. "Why did Grandma and Grandpa tell lies about you?" Or, "Are they in timeout like when I break big rules?" And seemed satisfied with my simple, honest answers. "Grandma and Grandpa made choices that weren't safe or kind, so they can't be around us right now," became a refrain that helped her make sense of the sudden absence. The criminal investigation into my parents' financial fraud proceeded more slowly than the family court case. 4 months after our court victory, they accepted a plea deal: restitution of all stolen funds plus damages, 2 years probation, and mandatory financial counseling. They avoided jail time, which was a relief despite everything. I didn't want Lily carrying the knowledge that her grandparents were incarcerated. The financial recovery took time. Between legal fees, temporary loss of income during my administrative leave, and the credit damage from the identity theft, I faced significant challenges. Rachel had indeed loaned me money to cover critical expenses during the darkest period, which I was now repaying gradually. Benjamin, my financial advisor, helped me implement comprehensive safeguards against future exploitation. We froze, my credit reports set up fraud alerts, changed all financial accounts, and created a secure system for monitoring any unusual activity. The identity restoration process was tedious and frustrating, but eventually my credit score began to recover. "Financial recovery is like rebuilding a house after a fire," Benjamin observed during one of our meetings. "It takes time, but eventually you end up with something stronger and more secure than before." 6 months after the court ruling, I decided it was time for a fresh start in a more tangible way. The house that had once felt like a sanctuary now carried too many painful associations. My parents' unauthorized entries, the confrontations, the sense of violation. After discussing it with Lily, we decided to move to a new home across town, close enough to maintain her school and friendships, but far enough to feel like a genuine new beginning. Our new house was smaller, but brighter, with a modern security system and no painful history. Lily delighted in choosing colors for her new bedroom and helping design the backyard play area. I found unexpected joy in creating spaces that belonged solely to us, untouched by the trauma of the past year. My professional life stabilized as well. The administrative investigation had completely cleared me with formal recognition from the company board, acknowledging the baseless nature of the allegations against me. My colleagues, with few exceptions, had rallied around me with surprising loyalty. The experience had revealed who my true friends were: Sarah, who had never wavered; Amanda, who had warned me about my parents' machinations; Daniel, who had protected my professional interests throughout. Perhaps most surprising was the evolution of my relationship with James. The custody battle, though initiated under false pretenses, had forced us to re-examine our co-parenting arrangement. With the manipulative influence of my parents removed, we found ourselves capable of communicating more effectively than we had in years. "I want to apologize again," he said during a coffee meeting to discuss Lily's summer schedule. "I should have come to you directly with any concerns instead of listening to your parents. We both made mistakes after the divorce," I acknowledged. "But Lily deserves parents who can work together even if we couldn't stay married." We developed a more flexible visitation schedule that prioritized Lily's activities and preferences rather than rigid adherence to court-mandated days. When James was promoted at work, requiring occasional weekend shifts, I readily accommodated the changes. When I needed to travel for a marketing conference, he took Lily for the extra days without complaint. My relationship with Scott remained more complicated. The damage done by decades of parental manipulation couldn't be undone with a single apology. We were working with a family therapist to understand the dynamics that had pitted us against each other and to build a healthier sibling relationship. They created a scarcity mindset, our therapist explained during a joint session, making you both feel that parental love and approval were limited resources you had to compete for rather than abundant gifts freely given. Scott nodded. "I always felt like I was losing some competition I never signed up for, like I could never measure up to Megan's accomplishments. And I always felt I had to be perfect, or I'd lose what little approval I had," I added. We were set up to see each other as threats instead of allies. These insights didn't immediately repair our relationship, but they helped us understand the foundation of our conflict. We began with small steps. Occasional family dinners with our children sharing holiday celebrations, checking in with simple texts. The twins and Lily cousins who had barely known each other before developed a tentative friendship uncomplicated by their parents' baggage. As for my parents, the court-ordered no-contact provisions remained in place. They had moved back to Wisconsin after the criminal case concluded. According to Scott, who maintained limited contact with them, they remained unrepentant, casting themselves as victims of my ingratitude and vindictiveness. I had made peace with the likelihood that they would never acknowledge the harm they had caused or take genuine responsibility for their actions. Dr. Porter helped me work through this painful reality. "Some people are incapable of the self-reflection necessary for genuine remorse," she explained. "Your healing can't depend on receiving an apology or acknowledgement that may never come." Instead, we focused on redefining family based on behavior rather than blood. "Family is as family does" became a guiding principle. Those who treated us with love, respect, and honesty, Rachel, Sarah, even Christina and James in their own ways, were more truly family than those who shared my DNA but had sought to destroy my life. 1 year after the court ruling, we celebrated Lily's 9th birthday with a small gathering of her closest friends and our chosen family. The party was simpler than the previous year's elaborate unicorn theme, but infinitely happier. Lily, surrounded by people who genuinely cared for her, showed no signs of missing her grandparents' presence. As I watched her blow out her candles, I reflected on how far we'd come. The financial wounds were healing. My credit score had almost returned to its previous level. The emotional scars remained, but were fading with time and proper support. Most importantly, Lily was thriving. Her school performance had rebounded, her natural confidence had returned, and her ability to trust remained intact despite the betrayal she had witnessed. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and Lily was getting ready for bed, she called me into her room. "I've been thinking, Mommy," she said, her expression serious beyond her years, "about Grandma and Grandpa." "What about them, sweetheart?" I asked, sitting beside her. "Dr. Westbrook says sometimes people do bad things because they're hurting inside, not because they're bad people." She fidgeted with her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa are hurting inside?" The question caught me off guard with its compassion and insight. "I think maybe they are," I answered carefully. "But that doesn't make what they did okay. Everyone feels hurt sometimes, but we still get to choose how we treat others." She nodded, processing this. "Maybe someday they'll learn how to make better choices. And then they could say sorry and mean it." Maybe I agreed, though I held little hope for such a transformation. But until then, we need to keep ourselves safe and surrounded by people who know how to love us properly. Like Rachel and Sarah and Daddy and Christina, she said confidently. Exactly. I smiled, tucking her in. Our chosen family. As I turned out her light, Lily's question lingered in my mind. Were my parents acting from their own unhealed wounds? Probably. Understanding that brought a measure of compassion, but not reconciliation. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. Some betrayals cut too deep for conventional forgiveness. What I had found instead was a different kind of peace. Not the fantasy reunion where all was forgiven and forgotten, but the solid ground of boundaries firmly held, of priorities, clearly defined, of a life rebuilt on my own terms. The parents who had tried to destroy me had instead forced me to discover my own strength. The financial exploitation had taught me to protect myself and my resources. The custody battle had clarified what truly mattered: Lily's well-being and my integrity. In trying to break me down, they had ultimately made me stronger. In attempting to isolate me, they had revealed the true friends and allies who would stand beside me through the darkest times. And perhaps most importantly, in trying to tear apart my small family, they had taught me that family is not defined by obligation or blood, but by love, respect, and unwavering support through life's most challenging moments. That knowledge, hard-won through pain and betrayal, was a gift I would carry forward. For myself, for Lily, and for the authentic family we were continuing to build together. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever experienced family betrayal or toxic relationships, know that you're not alone. Finding the strength to set boundaries and protect yourself is one of the hardest but most important things you'll ever do. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to distance yourself from toxic family members? What helped you heal? Please like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more real-life stories, and share with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose your own well-being. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more valuable than the family we're born into.